Around the country, we counted 838 active hate groups in 2020. And Florida has one of the highest numbers of hate groups and one of the highest numbers of hate groups per capita.
The Ku Klux Klan, neo-Nazis, neo-Confederates, skinheads, and anti-government militias. White supremacy hate groups are on the rise, and the Southern Poverty Law Center tells us it's been happening for several years now. From Charlottesville to Capitol Hill and right here in Central Florida, we're learning that while some of the groups are new, their message is evolving. This is a satin robe and pointed hood historians will tell you belongs to the original domestic terrorists. From the Rosewood Massacre, the Ocoee Election Day Massacre, and the Groveland Ford tragedy, to Harriet and Harry Moore's Brevard County home being bombed as they slept, killing them on Christmas Day, their 25th wedding anniversary. A familiar group's haunting presence has roots in each of the brutally violent attacks. The Ku Klux Klan.
That's a blood drop. The blood drop is to represent the blood of the Confederate soldiers and the blood of Jesus Christ.
Pictured here, a young Richard Harris in the Klan in Indiana, where he lived decades ago before moving to Polk County.
I was this little skinny runt of a kid, very sickly. I was the one the bullies took the lunch money away from on the schoolyard. And so I was just angry.
It was the 1960s. Dr. Harris, an author and pastor and professor now at Southeastern University in Lakeland, remembers his all-white school being integrated.
My 8th grade yearbook, someone signed it to Richard, Grand Dragon of the KKK. Keep those inward in line. That was my reputation in middle school. I was known as a racist.
Listen carefully as he explains who recruited him into the Klan.
What I didn't know was one of the teachers in my middle school was an active Klan member, and he was listening and watching to everything I said, reporting it back to state headquarters.
Back here in Florida, rarely ever was there an arrest for crimes that the Klan committed, let alone a conviction. Members drove out entire communities of black people, and in later years, other Klan members marched in front of the state capitol in Tallahassee, not worried about showing their faces. When Harris was 16, the official age to join,
the Klan suddenly just showed up in my life, and they wooed me in.
His mother had passed away 2 years before, and his father worked 2 jobs. The Klan said they'd be his family. They pegged him for a leadership role.
I was actually getting trained and memorizing all the Klan rituals and all the secrets and all that kind of thing, and how to conduct ceremonies. I also was trained in bomb making and wiretapping and lock picking.
Harris says people had no idea he was in this secret group. In the next 2 years, Richard excelled quickly through the ranks.
I was 18 years old, and I became the second youngest Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. My main job was, as Grand Dragon, was public speaking, holding rallies, and a lot of propaganda writing.
Articles and flyers, he says, are still circulating to this day.
We would just make things up, and we literally just made up lie after lie after lie. We would just make it up and attribute it to some made-up name.
My job is to focus on the white power movement.
Cassie Miller studies hate groups like the Klan, which Dr. Harris left when he was 20, upset over how the group was using the Bible.
I look back on it in horror, and I say, how could I have been so stupid? They would twist the scriptures.
Miller works for the Southern Poverty Law Center, a nonprofit that tracks hate groups here in the United States.
The kind of politics that the Klan advocates for are very much alive. Unfortunately, they've just been repackaged.
Miller says the repackaging appears in the form of white nationalists and neo-Nazi groups.
The white nationalist groups are ones that specifically want to create a white ethno-state, and they want to use a number of means to get there. Some of them advocate for using electoral politics to get there, while others are more openly violent.
Neo-Nazi groups plan the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, August of 2017. complete with Nazi chants and symbols. It was organized in response to a Robert E. Lee statue being removed.
Well, neo-Nazis have many of the same political ideas, but they are very openly anti-Semitic.
A counter-protester, 32-year-old Heather Heyer, died after a man purposely plowed his car into a crowd, killing her. He was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to life behind bars. Her father, Mark Heyer, lives in Brevard County.
They took the life of my little girl. That little girl was my heart.
Miller says she noticed an interesting trend. She says when you compare the Charlottesville protesters to the January 6th insurrection crowd.
Most of the people who are on the ground were not part of an organized hate group or militia. What we've seen is really the growth of an anti-democratic strand of politics. Probably one of the most notable is the Proud Boys.
Proud Boy Bobby Pickles calls Florida home with no regrets joining the West Palm Beach chapter.
It's been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life.
At his t-shirt screening business, you'll see several Proud Boy items. He also employs other Proud Boy members.
Pull them this way!
He marched at the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol.
That was a nonviolent protest. Yes, they were getting flooded by people, but people were unarmed.
Are you talking about the same riot at the Capitol that I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So the video clips where people are taking flags and they're beating police officers with the flag poles and with crutches and sticks, that is a nonviolent protest?
I guess that's maybe well, okay, you're right. Okay, you're right on that. That's probably a little bit of violence.
5 people in the attack died, including a police officer, though details now show Officer Brian Sicknick died of a stroke. 2 other officers killed themselves after. There were hundreds of injuries, and the feds charged more than 400 people, including members of the Proud Boys from the Central Florida area and the Oath Keepers.
I think that they should just get like a slap on the wrist for this. That's what they should get. Bottom line is nobody was armed and it was not premeditated. And I agree with what went down, so sorry.
Pickles from St. Petersburg earned a degree in English from the University of Florida and worked in community radio before opening this business, saying he has always wanted to join a fraternity. Proud Boys is a perfect fit.
I joined a men's drinking club with a patriot problem, and I fought for freedom because Trump exemplifies a lot of the things that, being an American is all about.
It disagrees with the Southern Poverty Law Center's classification of the Proud Boys as a hate group. He says they are not white supremacists or extremists, but are chauvinists. He says that means they have a love of country and an insane patriotism.
Proud Boys are not a hate group, we're a love group. It's all different people of all different walks of life, by the way, so whatever you hear is all fake news. We're all diverse.
Pickles says with members across 6 zones in Florida, they are growing.
And we have numerous chapters all throughout the country. And we have chapters internationally as well. Japan, England, Australia.
And they have big plans for the future.
And it's just a grassroots organization, try to get people who are like-minded, patriotic people to run for different offices. That's what we're trying to do now.
Pickles tells us the Proud Boys want a more conservative approach to governing and the way of life in America. But for those on the outside looking in, they remain skeptical.
There's even new groups cropping up with new names, but yet it's still the same old propaganda.
Joining me right now to talk more about it, from the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications, Dr. Andrew Selapak, the president of the Harry T. and Harriet V. Moore Cultural Complex, William Gary, and the international chairman of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio. Welcome, all of you, to our program today. Thank you for joining us. We want to take a look right now at the research on hate groups from another organization. This is the Anti-Defamation League's heat map. HEAT standing for hate, extremist, and anti-Semitism and terrorism. This map that you're looking at, it actually tracks incidents across the country, and right here in Florida, it's updated monthly. The blue bubbles that you see here are tracking white supremacist events, white supremacist propaganda as well. The white bubbles, anti-Semitic incidents, anything red or orange, it represents extremist murders or terrorist plots or attacks. You can see that Florida very specifically and Orlando up and down our coast are filled with bubbles that you can actually click on and read more about the incidents. But also at different political rallies, we've seen Proud Boys in trouble and pointed out for pushing back and starting trouble and fights. What do you say to that?
I will say that we take a self-defense approach to those situations, and most of those situations that you see are people that we have our guys in New York, for example, that were followed to their car. They tried to avoid confrontation multiple times, and they threw a glass bottle of urine at them, and they fought back. At the Capitol, out of the 18 members that have been arrested so far, none of them are accused of violence towards police officers. And I think that because we are, I guess, the mainstream group that the DOJ can put their thumb on, we're being overcharged. And even within the capital cases, we're not even getting charged evenly with other people that walked into that Capitol.
All right, and Break, we're going to move on. I want to talk to William Gary about this question. I know you know all about the danger when it comes to hate groups. We all have heard from the experts from the Southern Poverty Law Center detailing to us some of the research describing how the messaging of the KKK, in fact, has been repackaged, and now we see new groups taking on those messages today. What does that say about the history of systemic racism here in the United States?
Well, I think that what it says basically is that there are people that have various beliefs. Many of them based on false premises, and oftentimes I think groups of people form some type of organization that targets others that are unlike them because they don't want to be identified perhaps with the Ku Klux Klan or with some other well-known groups there. But they still are, I think, a threat to the well-being of citizens of the United States.
You know, the Anti-Defamation League published a report, and it's titled Tattered Robes. And in that report, they say that organized KKK groups are declining, adding that there are currently just over 30 active Klan groups in the United States. 30. Most of them, they say, very small. But the former Grand Dragon who lives in Central Florida that we have had an opportunity to speak with says Klan members used to laugh at this kind of tracking, saying that they could get hundreds, if not thousands of people to come out to secret rallies. The key word here being it is a secret group. Dr. Selepak, this question is for you. How active is the Klan, especially here in Central Florida?
So, anybody anywhere can, with an internet connection, can say that they are they're a member of the Klan. They can create their own Klan organization, but it doesn't mean that they're necessarily very active. Doesn't mean that they're doing anything beyond just being kind of an internet warrior. And we see that a lot with some of these Klan groups that exist today. There could be just a small handful of members. They could only be active on the internet. But one of the big things that we do see is that the members that do exist generally tend to be a little bit older. They also tend to be less likely to engage in activities that involve violence. The organizations that we think of that are going to be typically more violent are the neo-Nazi groups and the skinhead groups. So what we see from the Klan is that they're the most well-known. Their name is the most prominent. They're also, probably the oldest American terrorist organization here in the United States, going back to the 1860s, 1870s. But in terms of their impact and danger today, I would rank them relatively low. But again, they just have the sort of the name recognition, which is why a lot of people try to kind of glom onto them when they're building a new organization or they're trying to increase membership.
Panel, what a great conversation today. I really, really appreciate your time.